Good afternoon, everybody. Anthony Aniano here from RotoBaller Radio and RotoBaller.com with an early look at your fantasy football waiver wire for Week 11. Full disclosure, recording this Sunday evening before the Sunday and Monday night matchup. So obviously things could change. Other injuries can occur. Some numbers can pop off the table for you, whatever it may be. So any questions on any of those players, hit me up here either on X or in the chat here on YouTube. Just keep in mind, Week 11, a couple of teams on a bye. Carolina Panthers, New York Giants, Arizona Cardinals, and the Tampa Bay Bucks all getting Week 11 off. Week 10, we did have a couple of injuries as well. Quarterbacks and wide receivers stayed relatively healthy as of this point. Miles Sanders, Tank Bigsby, Aaron Jones all appeared on some injury reports during or after their games on Sunday, and Dalton Kincaid, a knee injury for the Buffalo Bills. So, with those teams on bye, maybe you're just missing Kyler Murray or Baker Mayfield. A couple of quarterbacks to be mindful of who are playing pretty well right now, one of which is Russell Wilson of the Pittsburgh Steelers. 21% rostered. Remember, Yahoo roster percentage is our talking point. 50% or more are the players we're looking for. So Russell Wilson, 21% rostered. This week, 50%, 14 of 28, only 195 yards, but threw 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Now in 3 starts for the Steelers, he's up to 6 touchdowns and 1 INT. The last touchdown, that big one to Mike Williams, another weapon there. George Pickens was involved. The run game was rolling with Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. Steelers offense is rolling. This team is rolling with the victory over Washington. In a 6-point per touchdown format, Russell Wilson finished with 24 points this week. Okay, next week, a Baltimore game. Should be a fun matchup. That Baltimore Raven-Pittsburgh Steeler rivalry. The Baltimore Ravens, listen, great against the run. They give up the 3rd most fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. You could throw the ball on them. When you look at what Joe Burrow did Thursday night, what Jameis Winston did a couple of weeks ago, it's actually a good matchup for Russell Wilson in Week 11. Another quarterback to be mindful of is Bo Nix of the Denver Broncos, 33% rostered. Goes 22 of 30, 215. 2 touchdowns this week against the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Good defense. Okay, he's got 9 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in his last 6 games. With those 9 passing touchdowns, also 2 rushing. So 11 total touchdowns to 2 interceptions in his last 6. 4 of those 6 games, 20 or more fantasy points in 6 points per passing touchdown. Finished this week with 20.1 fantasy points against Kansas City. Next week, Atlanta gives up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, so a good matchup for Bo Nix, Courtland Sutton against the Atlanta Falcons. Now, a couple of running backs to be mindful of. Gus Edwards of the Chargers appeared off the injury report and got more work than I certainly expected. J.K. Dobbins led the Chargers with 15 carries. Gus Edwards went for 10 and was effective with those 10, averaging 5.5 yards per carry, 10 for 55. We see a potential split. Gus Edwards continued to have a role. He is worth a roster spot. I'm not saying I'm starting him. However, with Chuba Hubbard, Tyrone Tracy, James Conner, and the Tampa Bay backfield of Rashad White and Bucky Irving all on the bye, you may need some help in deeper formats. Audric Etienne of the Denver Broncos, probably mispronounced his last name, I apologize. He surprisingly led the Denver Broncos in carries this week against Kansas City. He's available in 97% of Yahoo leagues, the Notre Dame product. He had 14 carries. Wasn't overly effective. It was 14 for 53, 5.3 fantasy points. But when you consider Javonte Williams only had 1 carry, Audric is a priority add if Denver is looking to segue into getting this rookie more work in the backfield. Denver, like I mentioned, against the Atlanta Falcons in Week 11. A couple of wide receivers to be mindful of. Now, real quick mention here, a couple of Baltimore Raven wide receivers had some big fantasy numbers on Thursday night. I'm still not prioritizing guys like Rashad Bateman or others there because Mark Andrews is involved. We know they want to run the ball. Zay Flowers is still the alpha. Deontay Johnson is there, although he didn't do anything in that matchup. So don't fall for some of that Raven wide receiver gold. Marcus Valdes-Scantling, no. I know he had a couple of touchdowns. He was on 3 catches. Okay, I'm not buying in on Marcus Valdes-Scantling, so he does not make the list today. Wide receivers who do make the list, I'm intrigued by Ricky Pearsall of the San Francisco 49ers. 37% rostered, makes him 63% available. Juwan Jennings, 8. Debo got some work. That 49er team pulled off that victory against Tampa. But Ricky Pearsall, that first catch for that long touchdown, catch after the run was fantastic. Was targeted 6 times, 4 for 73 and a touchdown, 17.3 fantasy points. If he's going to be that third wide receiver, he's going to get work. That 49er offense is going to be able to put up points. He's got 10 or more fantasy points, does Ricky Pearsall in his last 2 games. Good matchup against that Seattle secondary in Week 11. After that, take a look at the Indianapolis Colts. Josh Downs is now that number 1 guy. Michael Pittman is out with a back injury. We don't know what Pittman is going to be like in the future, whether he's healthy or not. Now, Alec Pierce got in the end zone, and Alec Pierce has emerged as a boom or bust receiver. He had 3 receptions. Adonai Mitchell of the Indianapolis Colts, though, is the wide receiver that intrigues me. It's available in 94% of leagues, and I like the targets. 6 targets, caught all 6 of them, 71 yards, 13.1 fantasy points. That Jets defense, you saw them exposed by the Arizona Cardinals this past week. If Sauce Gardner has to worry about Josh Downs potentially, although he doesn't really move that much, could open up things for Adonai Mitchell if Michael Pittman remains out. So be mindful of that. But he is available in 94% of leagues. Now, at the tight end position, maybe you're missing Theo Johnson. Trey McBride is the big hit. Cade Otton is a big hit with the Tampa Bay Bucks on bye. And now you got the Dalton Kincaid injury. Last week I mentioned the young kids, Theo Johnson and Jatavian Sanders, who had Jatavian Sanders got in the end zone this week. Theo Johnson had some targets. He was usable this week against Carolina. 2 veteran tight ends to be mindful of who are still surprisingly available. Zach Ertz is rostered in 33% of leagues, makes him available in 67% of Yahoo formats. He had 4 catches for 37 yards, only 7.7 fantasy points for Washington, but Jaden Daniels did target him 8 times. Keep in mind the revenge game for Zach Ertz, as Washington is going back to Philadelphia, so that could be fun for Zach Ertz. Second tight end to be mindful of is Mike Gesicki of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's benefited with targets with T. Higgins being out. He's available in 55% of leagues. He's rostered in 45. 4 catches for 30 yards, only 7 fantasy points. But again, 9 targets. I like that. Over his last 3 games, he's had 23 targets. It's just about 8 targets per game. He's had 16 catches, just over 5 catches per game, and 203 yards, just under 70 yards per game. So when you go 70 yards a game, you go 5 catches per game, you're suddenly sitting at 12 fantasy points for Mike Gesicki. He's got 2 touchdowns over those last 3 games as well, both of them last week. Okay, so Cincinnati in a nice matchup next week as well. So Mike Gesicki is a nice ad, available in 55% of leagues. So to recap, my top waiver ads for Week 11 of the fantasy football season: quarterbacks, Russell Wilson and Bo Nix; running backs, Audric Etienne and Gus Edwards; wide receivers, Ricky Pearsall and Adonai Mitchell; and tight ends, Zach Ertz and Mike Gesicki. Folks, head over to RotoBaller.com, use the promo code ACES, and save on any of our premium package: football, basketball, hockey, whatever it is you are looking for. Be sure to like and subscribe right here to the RotoBaller YouTube channel, and download the RotoBaller app. It's free. Everything you get on the computer, you get on the app, whether you play season-long, DFS, sports betting, whatever it is you are looking for. Give me a follow on @Aniano Fantasy on X, and make sure you tune into RotoBaller Radio Sundays to Fridays, 6 to 7 a.m. Myself, Scott Angle, Real Talk Raf, and Josh Hayes has you covered on SiriusXM Fantasy Football each and every morning. As always, everybody, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time right here on RotoBaller Radio.